It's right about time again to swerve again, confuse the general fans again. Add another swerve and then put it on a poll again. Put it on a poll again. Put it on the poll again. And our square to quad.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Swerve Live. Here we are, 12 o'clock on the East Coast, 10 o'clock here in Colorado, but no big deal. If you people are like me, you don't sleep anyway. This is my uptown. I'm dead in the morning. Now I'm up. Now I'm ready to go. I'm very proud of tonight. You know, slowly but surely, we've been incorporating a lot of things to pyroandballyhoo.com. We've been incorporating a lot of things to the brand. Literally 6 months ago, we started this website. Me and my producer, Chris Cash, who finally came out of the closet, pardon the pun. But it took us 6 months to come live, and here we are. This is a monumental night. Anything goes. Who knows what I'm going to say? I may get so loud, I may wake up my wife and my daughter, and they may come down here and yell and scream at me in the middle of a show. And if that happens, hey, man, it'll be good. It'll be ratings, as they say. So each and every Tuesday night now, we're going to be coming to you live at 12 o'clock Eastern time. I want to explain something to you. All my segments, when I'm here alone, these are going to be live. The interviews on the show were pre-recorded 2 days ago on Sunday. So I don't want you to say, when I'm wearing different clothing for the interviews, I don't want you to think I'm doing the Janet Jackson change. Those interviews were pre-recorded, but every time you see me, this is going to be live. At the end of the show, we are going to be taking your live tweets. I'm going to be answering some of your questions. You got a hashtag Swerve Live. That's going to be at the very end of the show. Also, on this monumental occasion, we're offering a special. If you want to try the VIP site where you get the video interviews every single week, and I'm going to tell you now, this little Egypt, she's drop dead gorgeous. I sat here and I looked at her for well over an hour. I let the interview go on so I continue to look at her. When you hear her on audio, it's one thing. When you see her on video, it's something completely different. And this woman, Angelina Attishul, is drop dead gorgeous. But that's part of the VIP package. We're doing something really special tonight. And we've only done this one time before, and we'll probably never do it again. If you decide you want to be a VIP member and you sign up during the duration of this show, the price to you is going to be $295 for life per month. You will be grandfathered in at that price of $295. Listen, there's no commitment. You every month after month after month, you could drop out if you like, but you'd be grandfathered at $295 during the duration of this show. If you sign up a VIP, the code word is Swerve Live. Now we're going to get into my opening shoot because I got a lot I want to say and a lot I need to get off my chest. And I like to talk to you out there because maybe you can help me with some of these situations and some of these problems I have. I'm having a real problem with Raw, and I'll tell you why that is. Every week now I watch the 3-hour show because, as you know, if you're a VIP member, I do my comments on the show once it's over. So part of my job is to sit through Raw. And I found myself in the last couple of months, I'm watching this show, and so many times I've said to myself, the reason why I'm not enjoying this show is it's not written for me. Listen, I'm 53 years old. I've been a wrestling fan since the time I was 12, 13 years old. So that's about 40 years ago. Wrestling was different back then when I was 13. But when I was in my 20s, I was still watching wrestling. When I was in my 30s, in the prime of my career, I was writing wrestling. When I was in my 40s, I was still working for TNA. And it was wrestling. It was a wrestling show. But the more and more now at 53 years old, I sit here and I watch this Raw show and I'm saying to myself, Am I not enjoying this show because it's not written for me? If it's not written for me and it's written for a child, I'm not going to like the show. It makes perfect sense. And I'll be honest, while I'm watching some of this stuff, I'm starting to feel stupid. I'm starting to feel like I'm an idiot and I shouldn't be sitting through this stuff because this stuff is for children. It's not for adults. And why am I watching this? Why am I commenting on this when it's not made for me? And last night was the prime example. Listen, there have been television shows throughout the course of history that are written for at a level where children can enjoy and adults can enjoy it as well. Most of the time, those shows are cartoons. A couple that come to mind are, The Simpsons. If you're a kid, you like The Simpsons. If you're an adult, it appeals to you in a different level. There's Family Guy. If kids like Family Guys, if you're an adult, you pull out different things from Family Guy. There's this new show, and my daughter watches this show. She's 19 years old. That tells you exactly what I'm saying. Bob's Burgers. Kids like it. Adults like it. I know Batman 66. Listen, I just bought the Blu-ray set that came out on Tuesday. I'm going through every single episode. I'm going to review every single episode on Pyro and Value. But my point is this. When I looked at it as a kid, I enjoyed it for different reasons that when I look at it now, but now I understand there's a lot of it that was adult humor and written for adults. I understand all that. But that's not what's happening with Raw. Raw is not written over the duration of 3 hours on an adult and a child level. That's not the way it's written. This is how it's written. They have kiddie segments, then adult segments, then kiddie segments, and then adult segments. Like the perfect example was last night. We had Grumpy Kitty Part 1. After Grumpy Kitty Part 1, we had Lana come out, and Lana was threatening to be topless. Okay, so now we had the Grumpy Kitty, which guys like me are looking at this, and I'm embarrassed that I'm watching Grumpy Kitty. Then you got Lana telling the parents in the crowd with their kids, I'm going to be topless in a minute, ladies and gentlemen, so you might want to cover your kids' eyes. We came back once again with Grumpy Kitty Part 2, okay? Kid segment. Then we had the humping bunny. The bunny humped Adam Rose. That was a mixed message because the bunny was for kids. The humping from behind was for adults. I don't even know what that was. Then finally, if you listen to Stephanie McMahon at the end of that show, Stephanie McMahon was using words that I didn't even know. She threw out a couple of words out there. I didn't even know what they meant. I'm 53 years old. How is a 10-year-old kid in the crowd supposed to know what the heck Stephanie's talking about? So at the end of the day, it's half kid, it's half adult, because at the end of the day, the bottom line is they're trying to appeal to everybody. This show is trying to be the be-all, end-all for everybody. The problem is this. In trying to accomplish this, the WWE is doing the complete opposite. What they're doing is they're turning off people like me that are going to shut off the Grumpy Cat segments. We're going to shut off the Humping Bunny segments. And then on the other side of the coin, you're pissing off the parents because Lana's going to be naked in about 5 minutes over here. The curb stomp that Rollins does on the show is probably the most violent thing that you'll see on any wrestling show. The parents can't be in love with that when the little kids waving the foam fingers are in the crowd. So they're not watching that portion of it. And listen, if you think I'm wrong, all you have to do is look at the ratings. That's all you have to do, because week by week by week by week, there has been a steady decline. Somebody, in my opinion, listen, it ain't my company. It's Vince McMahon's company. It's Vince McMahon's headache. Triple H and Stephanie. It's not my headache, but I would suggest that somebody stop the bleeding and decide what we're going to be. Now, I understand there are shareholders. It's a public company. I get all that, but you have to decide what you're going to be. If you're going to be a kiddie show, then go all the way with the kiddie show, and we'll all stop watching. We'll all stop talking about it. You won't get criticized by us anymore. If you want to be the adult show, then go back to what wrestling has been since I've been watching in 1973. You go back to that, that's a wrestling show. Right now, it's a mishmash. They don't know what they are. They're not building ratings. Nobody's following along. They're losing viewers on a weekly basis, and they need to define themselves, for crying out loud. And that was the opening rant, and that was brought to you by yourfaceonafigure.com. Listen, up next, Justin LeBar, Brian Ghoulish of Chair Shot Reality. Don't miss this interview. The Swerve is brought to you by myfaceonafigure.com, where you can literally become your own action figure. Look, if you're a collector of wrestling figures, this is a no-brainer. Bring yourself to life in the wrestling world and go up against some of the biggest names in the business. And of course, Christmas is coming up. Surprise your friend or loved ones with their very own figure from myfaceonafigure.com. That's myfaceonafigure.com. Tell them Vince Russo sent you. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Swerve. My first guests tonight are two gentlemen that I had the privilege and honor of meeting last week in Pittsburgh. I went and I did their show, Chair Shot Reality, on WrestleZone.com. I had a phenomenal time. Great show, and I'm talking about the host of the show, Justin LeBar, and his co-host, Brian Ghoulish. Gentlemen, are you there?
We are here.
Now, it looks to me, Justin, I didn't want to say anything, but you're sitting in a hotel lobby. From the looks of things, you're getting smashed. Am I accurate with this?
I'm in the hotel lobby. I wouldn't say smashed. I mean, I'm drinking water and I'm sitting comfortably in a lobby couch in Atlanta.
Listen, hey, they say in wrestling, bro, perception is everything. I'm just look at this guy. This guy's drinking. All right, listen, if you guys want to get loaded, that's cool because you'll open up. Listen, I'm going to share something with you guys. Let's take our guard absolutely down, because I'm going to hit you with something. You're not going to be expecting this from me, and I'm going to tell you why I'm hitting you with this. I've been wrestling, pardon the pun. I've been wrestling with this, I'm telling you, for the last 6 months. And every week when I sit down and I analyze Raw and I critique Raw, I keep coming back to this same idea that's going through my head. And quite frankly, I keep telling myself, no, it can't be. No, it can't be. No, it can't be. I want to read to you guys, and I want you to listen to every word I say. I just received an email tonight from one of the fans that listens to Pyro and Ballyhoo. And it's about this very topic. And when he brought it up and he slapped me across the face with it, now I'm saying to myself, holy crap. I mean, am I right? Is this what it's all about? Is this what we're dealing with? I'm going to read you the email word for word. I'm not going to tell you, who wrote in. I don't know if he wants his name used or whatnot, and that's not important. But listen to this email I just received today. Thank you for such a great website. I've been a fan of yours for such a long time, and I share many of your viewpoints. I have a theory on why the state of wrestling is the way it is. I have been a wrestling fan for 40 years, and I have never seen it this bad. I have been trying to figure out why I don't like it, and I think I have figured it out. Here it goes. I have two daughters that are 18 and 13, and I have tried to be an involved dad. While they were growing up, one of my jobs was to watch TV with them and watch their shows. Their shows were on the Disney Channel and Nickelodeon and were sitcoms made for kids. There was a lot of laughing, bright colors, moved fast, and stories were weak. There were a lot of pranks and silly kids jokes. These shows had big ratings and were highly successful. Their products were sold in the big chain stores, and all the kids wanted their clothes, toys, etc. I have realized the vision of the WWE. It's for kids. It's funny listening to grown men on podcasts analyze what is happening on Raw or on pay-per-views, and they can't figure out why the writers write what they do. Wake up. The WWE is not for you. It's for kids. The adults are going to get the WWE network for the nostalgia, but the WWE has to rope in the kids to be successful. Goofy and nonsensical storylines, corny jokes and pranks, no scary blood, etc., all geared for the kiddies. I want to know your opinion, and please think back to recent episodes of Raw and think about what I wrote. Now, gentlemen, I have to tell you this, and this is an absolute shoot. When I sit behind this very computer every Monday night after watching 3 hours of Raw, and I've got my notes and I'm ready to go off, I stop myself every single time, and this is what I say to myself. I say, Vince, this show is not written for you. You are having this effect to the show because you are not the audience. You are not the one they're trying to reach. You are a grown man, and you are literally watching a show for children, and then you're trying to comment on that show as an adult. I say that to myself every single week. Brian, I'm going to start with you first. What's your take on this, bro? I mean, is it what it is? What's going on?
I mean, I go back to that email, and the one thing I pull out of there is that the WWE Network is for the people who aren't kids to live vicariously through their childhood. And I can go back and I can watch all the WCW Nitros from 94, 95, 96. I can watch all the WrestleManias from WrestleMania 1 on, and all the pay-per-views and all the territory days. It makes sense. I watched that. Now, how are the WWE? The WWE is not going to capture younger audience based on the past. They're going to build the audience based on now. So while they already have that 22, 23 to 50-year-old crowd captured in from the history, well, I mean, what's next? Well, that's why they're not going to turn John Cena heel, because there is too much invested in John Cena bringing in that younger fan base. I mean, hell, we got bunnies bouncing around. We've got people dancing. You don't see anything anymore. It's the PG era. It's almost the G era. You don't see blood anymore unless it's an accidental or the hard way cut. You don't see any of that stuff anymore, and I think it makes perfect sense thinking about it. Maybe that's the way the business is going. $9.99 to the people older than 9 years old, and everyone younger than 9 years old. You're going to get that 3 hours of whatever's out there on the PG level.
But, Brian, what does that say about us? And listen, I'm in the exact same boat that you guys are in with Chair Shot Reality. I do my thing over here, Pyro and Ballyhoo, and I'm a one-man show. I don't surround myself with beautiful women for ratings. That's another story for another time, which I do respect, Justin. You know that. But Brian, What does that say? What are we doing then? What does that say for us? I'm a 53-year-old man. I'm sitting here and I'm talking about a kids show.
Well, I guess we're waiting for something to come back and go back to the glory days, as I'd like to call them. I mean, Vince, you were there. You wrote everything for you and Ed from 95, 96, now the Attitude Era. We're waiting right now for the second coming of the Attitude Era. It's cyclical. Justin talked about it earlier tonight. I mean, it's definitely cyclical in wrestling. And, you bring Hogan back, you bring The Rock back, you bring the part-timers back, and what does that do? That satisfies us older people waiting and watching us and watching the younger demographic. So what does that say about us? I don't know. Are we naive? I don't think we're naive. I just think, again, that's just the state of the product. It makes sense. Now, whether it's true or not, you do have some creepy things. I mean, is everything directed at kids? Look at Bray Wyatt. We're talking about, nightmares. You go back to the Boogeyman or the Undertaker and Kane, but Bray Wyatt's not something you would market to a 10-year-old kid.
Justin?
There are two issues here. The first issue being that, as Brian was just touching on, is that the company policy is that this is for kids, in terms of the Kid Slam and Scooby-Doo cartoons and John Cena and the fact that the kids and their parents spend so much money. The company policy is to aim at kids, and there's a lot of money in PG sponsors, as we found out since the company's been public. But at the same time, the company still wants to try to be cool to our demographic being broad, meaning from our 20s all the way up to you, Vince, in your early 50s. They want to still try to be cool and trendy, but they also want to try to make money to the younger kids. And the other, so they
Justin, can I just interrupt you for a
second?
Can I just interrupt you for a second? Because I got to point out the way you said us in our 20s, and you're 29 years old. Go ahead, bro.
I'm going to be 27 next Saturday.
All right, I was 27, 29. Come on, a couple of years. Go ahead, bro. But, Justin, let me ask you, I hear what you're saying, Justin, but, bro, aren't they turning people off in the process?
They are, but let me get this is my other point. So, as Brian said, I do believe the wrestling business is cyclical, but however, this is the first time they've come across this chapter, meaning for the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, even the early 80s, everything was regionalized. So it was just, it was national. It was just regionalized, and you could hone in and really do people-to-people, face-to-face promoting, draw them in for wrestling. Then wrestling started to become national, the boom of the 80s, Hulk Hogan, all that stuff, and it was geared towards the kids. It was PG, much like it is now, and that was fine. We really didn't know too much different from it because since it had been national, this is the first time it had been national. Oh, it's a kids program. Great. And then they switched in, and we got the 90s. As those kids grew up, they catered to those kids that grew up, and they gave them, when you gave them attitude. And that was fine. It was national. Well, now those people have since gone on, and now they're having their own kids, and we're going back in that circle. It's time to go for those kids again. But this is the first time we've gone back to the well of kids, and it's national still, and you have social media, and you have the ability to do these podcasts. So we have 53-year-olds and almost 27-year-olds sitting there analyzing it. It's the change of the times, of the fact that it made sense that it went, from kids to adults and back to kids. But now it's just a wild card of the situation of the society we're in, with the ability to do this and analyze it on on these nights, with the ability to have social media to where 40-year-old people can complain about how unhappy they are, but yet they're still watching, and they can talk about, back in 1998, that would have never been cool or whatever. It's almost like the cyclicalness of the business is hurting it because WWE has been not prepared to adapt. They're trying to still aim to the kids and follow that cyclical pattern, but also trying to be cool for the adults, and they're not doing a good job at satisfying both.
Brian, you look like you want to chime in. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I'll give you a perfect example on this. And Justin, he can. I've been with Chair Shot for 2 years now, and I think this has gone on for 3 or 4 years now, back to Miami and Atlanta. But we have a family that comes every WrestleMania weekend. We do our Chair Shot reality party, usually on the Saturday before Mania, and we have a family, a mother, a father, and a 15 or 16-year-old son. They come all the way from Australia. And the father, he said, I spare no expense. Last year for New York, they stopped in L.A. for a week, and then they came up to New York for 29. And he said, I'm not going to spare an expense for my son. And he was there for his son. He's a wrestling fan, but he was more concerned about his son, not him. So the parents are going to stick around. Like you said, it's aimed toward the kids, and who's the one that supports the kids and goes and gives them the money to go buy the shirts and buy the merchandise? It's the parents. So the parents we're still hooked in to this product through our children, whether you want to be or not. If you don't like wrestling anymore, guess what? Doesn't matter. Your child does, so you're still going to have to watch.
Okay, I want to ask you guys a question because we're really going to disagree on this. We agree on a lot of things. We disagree on this big time, and I'm going to needle you a little bit on this because I want to understand. I'm not going to argue with you. We all look at things differently. I would never argue with you. I want to understand your mindset. I've got to first poise this question by asking this question. Would the two of you guys agree that Monday Night Raw is a television show? Justin?
Absolutely.
Brian?
Yes, very much.
Okay, guys, if Monday Night Raw is a television show, this is where I don't understand, and you guys have brought it up a few times here now. Where's the cyclical come in? It's a television show, guys. Guys, Seinfeld was on for 9 seasons. Seinfeld wasn't good in season 1, bad in season 2, good in season 3 and 4, bad in 5 and 6. It's a television show. Television shows aren't cyclical. It goes up and down depending on the writing of the show. If the writing of the show is always good, there are no cycles. People are going to continue to tune in and watch the show. They tune out when the writing's bad and there's nothing on the show they want to see. So I guess what I'm really struggling with, and it's not only you, I hear from so many people about the business being cyclical, and I know they say that because they want to believe that. They're waiting for the big comeback. Wrestling's going to come back strong, and I understand that. But looking at this show as a television show, television shows aren't cyclical.
Well, that goes back. You're right. You're making very fair points here, Vince. It goes back to, again, with the kids argument. On the left hand, they want to be for the kids, and on the right hand, they want to still be appealing to the older adults. On the left hand, they want to be an entertainment juggernaut, and they want to be the longest running episodic television show in history, which in fact are. But then on the other hand, they want to still be wrestling in some cases. I've always often said, I don't know Vince McMahon. Obviously, Vince, I know it's been a lot of years, but you know him better than I ever, up to this point, know him. I've always wondered, is a part of him ashamed to be a wrestling promoter? If he could be Jerry Bruckheimer right now, would he even be at Monday Night Raw every week? It goes back to they are trying to change with the times, going public, trying to grow bigger, more structure, worrying about stockholders, worrying about bringing on Grumpy Cat to Raw, but then at the same time they want to say, oh no, but quietly they have to whisper it to the hardcore fans, to the older crowd. No, we're still wrestling. We'll do a little bit of wrestling every now and again. Oh, but first we're here for the kids. It's entertainment. It's like they want to thread that, they want to burn on both ends. And unfortunately, through these kind of things, through all of us, through Chair Shot Reality, through the Swerve on Pyro and Ballyhoo, we're able to sit here and analyze and dissect and really bring it to light and say they're not doing a good job at burning on both ends.
Well, but Justin, I believe everything you just said there. I'm on board with that 100%. But if that's the case, where does the cyclical come in? It sucks, bro. I mean, the product sucks. The writing sucks. The ratings have been down for 12 years. I mean, do you guys believe there's a 12-year cycle?
But keep in mind, Vince, in those last 12 years, how much more has come on TV? How many more channels do we have? Now you can watch everything on Hulu. You can watch everything. So the ratings have been down, but again, I stress on watching ratings that closely as a number one metric.
Justin, can I interrupt you? Because you know what I say to that argument, Justin? Because I agree with you, bro. There's a million more. There's a million more choices out there now compared to when I was writing in the Attitude Era. I'll be the first one to say that. But Justin, you know what my argument to that is? Bro, what about the NFL? What about Monday Night Football? Monday Night Football has stayed consistent in the last 12 years. The WWE has gone on a downward spiral during that time. So if the NFL is still as popular as it ever was, and maybe even more popular, how can that theory of there's more programming and there's more choices hold up? Because if that were the case, then less people would be interested in the NFL on Monday nights.
Because the NFL is always the NFL is always having to react. The NFL sees MMA, crazy TV networks. This is where we get the real sports entertainment factor. The NFL is always on the reactionary. They're always having to react, and they're dealing with real life issues, whether it's off the field or what have you. WWE, goes back to being the only game in town for a while. The WWE, it's that cyclical's coming around again, but it's that problem. It's that cyclicalness of we're coming around the bend again, and now we're trying to aim to the kids again, but the situation has changed. It has changed. There's more things to watch on TV, and they're trying to aim for the adults. It goes into it's almost like they've gotten too comfortable. They've gotten too comfortable. They're not reacting anymore. They are trying to set the tone, set the bar, and the bar has gotten low, quite frankly. Whereas the NFL, and if you want to say Monday Night Football, let's be honest, Sunday Night Football has took the space of being number one, and maybe you can even argue Thursdays starting to even take hold. So I mean, Monday Night Football itself has even dropped. But if you want to compare NFL to WWE, it's that the NFL constantly puts themselves as competition with who they need to be competing with. WWE just figures they're their only game in town, and we're entertainment juggernaut, and that I think it's gotten too comfortable in their own skin.
But let's go back. Let's go back to the argument real quick about the writing being, tailored to the youth, the children. If you look at all the other shows, if you look at football, if you look at the shows on CBS, NBC, and even all the discoveries and things like that, these all air. We're watching Monday Night Raw from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Monday Night Football, 8:30 to midnight sometimes. If you're writing for kids, kids aren't going to be up at this time. They're going to have to watch DVR. They're going to have to go on YouTube and watch everything back. Which is when I was a kid, we had Monday Night Raw, but we also had Saturday morning shows. We had Superstars at 10 a.m. here in Pittsburgh. And that's what I was able to watch because, quite frankly, I wasn't staying up. I wasn't allowed at a bedtime. I'm 12 years old. I got to be in bed for school the next morning. If you're going to write, my argument is if you're going to write for the kids, you've got to have a kid audience. And you don't have a kid audience from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m.
Well, take a look at who's writing. Take a look, Brian. That's an interesting point. Take a look at who's writing. Once again, them trying to satisfy the kids and older entertainment, and they're not doing either. It's always funny. You have these guys who are trying to write and satisfy the kids, and as you said, they're putting on things with bunnies, they're putting on kid-friendly things at later in the show. What sense does that make when the kids are to bed? And then on the other hand, you can go back to that's maybe the entertainment spectacle of it, and then you can go to the old-fashioned pro wrestling. Old-fashioned pro wrestling. What is old-fashioned pro wrestling built off of? It's built off of conflict and violence. It's built off of sex appeal. It's built off of some comedy, and you got guys writing this stuff who can't tell a good joke. If you rehearsed it with them for an hour, who haven't gotten laid and have never been in a fight in their life, so how you expect them to write a good show? It's like they can't satisfy either medium on either end of the spectrum.
Let me throw this out there to you guys too. I want to see how you feel about this because again, I agree with you. The only thing I don't agree with you guys is the cyclical. I think it's all in the writing. If the writing is good, people will watch the show. That's why, Seinfeld goes on for 9 years. After the 9 years, they're done because they realize after having that longer run, the writing can't keep up. It's going to go downhill after that. A lot of the good shows, you'll usually see 8, 9 seasons and then they're done. But everything else, I agree with you guys. I mean, I think in the process of trying to please the older fans and the younger fans, I think they're turning off both audiences. When, you've got a fighting rabbit they're turning off the older audience. When you have somebody being curb stomped on a pile of cinder blocks, the parents now are covering the eyes of their children. So by trying to please both crowds, I think they're alienating both crowds, and I think that's why you continue to lose more and more viewers on a month-to-month basis. But this is my biggest concern. And I wanted to believe for the longest time this wasn't true, but now I can't deny it anymore. When you build pay-per-view to pay-per-view and you're building towards a match, and the match that you want people to see, the formula is not rocket science. The heel gets heat, the heel gets heat, the heel gets heat, and then you pay to see the pay-per-view to see the babyface get his comeuppance after getting his butt kicked for 4 weeks on TV. That's the psychology. That's the way it's been done till the beginning of time. There's nothing that shows me that doesn't work anymore. What I'm noticing more and more in this Raw show is there's no heat. And I'm not talking about blood. I'm not talking about violence. I'm talking about good old-fashioned heat. I don't want to believe that there's no heat on this show, and they're losing the art of wrestling and the very foundation it was built on, because they're trying to cater to kids and that PG rating. Do you guys believe that the kids and the PG rating is affecting how much heat they put on a wrestler in a certain feud?
Well, I mean, if you look at the kids looking up to the face wrestlers, maybe their thought is, well, we can't have the heel beat down the face every single week and then culminate it with a pay-per-view, because we're looking at 3 to 4 weeks in between pay-per-views now, because the kids are going to get discouraged. So you have to show hope for the face, I would think.
Well, but Brian, I don't want to interrupt you, but maybe it was a wrong example. I'm not even talking about every week. The way we used to do it, bro, and it was cookie cutter. 1 week the heel gets heat. The next week the babyface makes his comeback. The next week the heel gets heat. The next week he gives some to the babyface. But the last thing you do going into the pay-per-view is you get heat on the heel. On that very last show, the heel gets heat. I don't see that anymore.
And honestly, what is the one thing you see, or you don't see it anymore, but every time there's that final going into a pay-per-view, the go-home show, the contract signing, you see the heel put the face through the table, or you see the heel do something. I'm 100% on board with you. I haven't seen that in a while. I haven't seen a Batista bomb through a table. I haven't seen a pedigree on a table in a long, long time, to set up that intrigue to lead in to the pay-per-view. And I'm trying to think here, going back to leading into 30 with the Brock and the Undertaker thing. I'm trying to think where that left off, because I think there was some doubt, thinking, well, wait a minute, the Undertaker got the upper hand on Brock at the go-home show, so does that mean Brock's going to win? And that left doubt in people's mind, but there's no way Undertaker, the streak's going to be broken, and sure enough, bam, streak broken.
You know, Justin, what I'm afraid of, this is what concerns me. Listen, I get the whole kid thing. I get the sponsor thing. I get the PG thing. I get all that. Listen, whatever they got to do. All I know is during the Attitude Era, Vince was turning sponsors away if they weren't suitable for the product. People have to remember, before the Attitude Era, we had Skittles, Taste the Rainbow gimmick. I was in the meeting when the Attitude Era started, and Vince said, take Skittles off the show. I can't have a commercial that says, taste the rainbow on this type of a show, but there were 50 other sponsors waiting in line to come on the show. So we didn't care about Skittles. But my concern is, listen, I understand what they're doing. It doesn't make any sense to me. It never will. But Justin, here's what I'm bothered by. This PG, the kids, the lack of heat, it's changing the very foundation of what the wrestling business was built on. When I was a fan of Bruno Sammartino, they built up the heels that every month you thought, this is the guy that's going to beat Bruno. That's why you had to write the show. Hogan, they did the same thing. I was on the phone on Friday with King Kong Bundy. They did the same thing with Hogan, the Bundys, and the Big John Studs, and the Savages, and the list went on and on. They made you believe every month this is the guy that's going to beat Hogan because they gave the heel heat. There's no heat anymore. I've got to watch Cena defend this month because this is the month he's going to lose the title. The art of heat and the heel and building a feud, to me, that just doesn't exist anymore.
It's hard for me to disagree with you, and I think it comes back to they can't stick to their guns anymore. And what I mean is, you talk about Vince and how he used to have sponsors lined up, and no, get Skittles out of there. Well, again, now, I mean, I wrote about this before. I think when the company went public, sure, it meant more money, and I understand from a business aspect, but I think it definitely hurt the company in the long run, as we're seeing now, and in many ways. They can't stick to their guns anymore. You can't, when you have those quarterly media holders of why you booted sponsor like Skittles to the how do you explain that you boot them to the side? And it does go back to this in the 90s when they were just a private wrestling company, you played by your own rules. You didn't worry about political correctness. You said some things that took some chances. You did some things that took some chances. Hell, now you do a storyline involving Russia and U.S. and it's one of the oldest, most old-fashioned, bare basic wrestling feuds, the great anti-American versus the American, and we got to watch what we say, and we got to watch what we do with flags. Shawn Michaels used to stick the Canadian flag up his nose and then crotch chop it and hump it. I mean, it goes back to there's too much political correctness. You can't stick to your guns and be a private company. You got to answer to everybody else. All these things, you put them in a blender, you spit it out, and you got a nice morning latte of bland. That's what you get.
Hey, Justin, I got to tell you, that's great, bro. I don't know if I can put it any better than that. Justin, it reminds me of, I'll never forget this conversation. When I left the WWE in 1999 to go to WCW, I think, bro, I don't know, the ratings were a 5 or the ratings were a 6. I don't know. I went back in 2002 and the ratings were half of what they were. They were down to a 3 in 2002. And I remember, going in there, the old Vince Russo, just wanting to conduct business as I usually did. And Vince, stopped me. And he said to me, Vince, you got to understand, it's not the same anymore. We're a public company now. Everything has changed. And I turned around and call me naive, call me stupid, whatever. But I looked at him and I said, Vince, that's all well and good, but it's hurt the product. It hasn't helped the product. The fact that you became a public company, you've cut your rating in half. That was 12 years ago. I mean, Brian, is it possible that, under a public umbrella, we're never going to see cutting edge television anymore, outside of the box television, that's going to draw eyeballs and going to draw money because it's never going to be allowed in that infrastructure?
I mean, you have to look after the bottom line in a public company. You do have shareholders you have to answer to because it's their money that's now invested. I mean, when they announced the network back in January or February of last year, and stock price went from $8 or $9 a share to $31 a share before coming down to about $14 a share, everyone was on cloud nine. Everything worked, and yes, it was all well and good. But at the end of the day, my question is it an ownership thing? What if someone else went in there? What if a Dana White owned WWE? What if a Vince Russo owned WWE? Maybe that's Vince's philosophy, and maybe Vince's philosophy, and Vince, I don't know the guy, but sounds like he can be severely stubborn at times. Maybe that Vince McMahon stubbornness is what's going to hurt the product at the end of the day. Until Vince steps aside, which he may never do until he's gone, maybe you're not going to see the change that's going to need to be seen to get the product to where it needs to be again. I mean, do I think Triple H and Stephanie would be the ones that obviously would take over for Vince Would they change things? Because obviously they're not calling the final shots right now, even though they're a chief operating officer and principal owner. Vince, it's the buck stops with Vince. So I think maybe it's just an ownership thing. Maybe that's Vince's mentality now. I'm not sure it's necessarily a stockholder shareholder thing. It could just come down to, listen, this is what Vince wants, and no one's telling Vince differently.
Okay, gentlemen, a great conversation. This is why I love talking to you guys. This is what you get on Chair Shot Reality on WrestleZone.com every single week. You get real guys that love the wrestling business. They're intelligent. They talk to you, and you can talk back to them. They don't talk down to you. They don't think they know more than you. They're just giving their insights like the average fan, and that's why I think it's so successful. And Justin, tell us a little bit about, you just had your 250th episode of Chair Shot Reality. That's a milestone. Seriously, did you ever think you were going to reach that?
When we started, no, I didn't know if it was going to last past a week. It's Chair Shot Reality every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You get anywhere from 3 to 6 different videos. We're not talking long-winded hour, 2 hours where you have to really block your entire day. I mean, I'm talking 5 or 6 minutes. You can watch it on your lunch break. You can go to the bathroom, pull it up on your phone, and watch when you go to the bathroom. Whatever your fancy is. And you get this kind of talk, as you said, and you get it in high production value, a multi-million-dollar studio event. So you were just in with us in downtown Pittsburgh. Beautiful ladies, full camera crew, live directing, music. I mean, you get a full experience. I don't like to necessarily compare to other things because you want to try to be individual. But fans, if you watch ESPN for a lot of sports talk, you get this kind of talk for wrestling fans on Chair Shot Reality, a little entertainment flair. Mixed with some sports and analysis. And there's nothing else like it on the web, and we all have different backgrounds to bring different insight. Chair Shot Reality, the #1 procrastination tool on the internet.
And also, I want to add now to Justin, I appreciate this very much. Chair Shot Reality is now an affiliate of pyroandballyhoo.com. You can get your first month membership for $3.95 by putting in the code word CSR. And I got to tell you, gentlemen, something. I love being in business with you guys. I love working with you. I love talking to you. You know what it is? You're fans. And that comes across, your love for it. Not coming across as a know-it-all and been there and done that. And, you're listening to me and I'm smarter than you. You talk to the people watching the show. And that's what I really enjoy about Chair Shot Reality. But again, gentlemen, Justin, Brian, I want to thank you for taking the time with me tonight. I love your insights. I take them into consideration. You make me think a different way. I like to open up my mind, and I hope there's many more conversations like this in the future.
Always love talking to you, Vince. Thank you for all the promotion.
Thanks for having us.
All right, guys, thank you very much, and we'll be back with the Swerve right after this. The Swerve is brought to you by MyFaceOnAFigure.com, where you can literally become your own action figure. Look, if you're a collector of wrestling figures, this is a no-brainer. Bring yourself to life in the wrestling world and go up against some of the biggest names in the business. And of course, Christmas is coming up. Surprise your friend or loved ones with their very own figure from MyFaceOnAFigure.com. That's MyFaceOnAFigure.com. Tell them Vince Russo sent you. All right, everybody, now I'm back here live with the Swerve. I love the fact that it's 10:50 and I'm still sitting here talking to you. 12:50 if you're in New York, my old stomping ground. I want to react a little bit to that interview because I want to share something with you. If you follow pyroandballyhoo.com, you know I just wrote a whole article a couple of days ago about the wrestling business being cyclical. I have to share this story with you. I want to explain something to you, okay? And let me say, Justin LeBar and Brian Ghoulish and Josh Eisenberg and Caroline and Sam, that whole Chair Shot reality team is tremendous. The girls are gorgeous. See, Justin purposely didn't bring the girls on the show because he knows every time they're on camera, they steal the scene. When you go to Chair Shot Reality on WrestleZone.com, these girls, this Caroline and this Samantha, it's the Ginger Marianne thing. If you're a fan of the Gilligan's Island, they got the whole Ginger Marianne thing. You got to check out the show. But I love these guys. But let me explain something to you. Justin, I apologize. There is no cyclical in professional wrestling. Let me tell you what cyclical is. And then I'm going to give you a little insight that I can give you and not many other people can. When people say cyclical, that wrestling is cyclical, those are people making excuses. Those are people, when the ratings are down, it's easy to say wrestling is cyclical and we're on a downward cycle. It's an excuse. It's as simple as that. I looked at the ratings earlier this week because I'm trying to figure out, okay, if wrestling's cyclical, how far apart are these cycles? Are these cycles 5 years apart? Are they 10 years apart? Are they 20 years apart? How far apart are these cycles? I looked at the numbers from 1999 to today. That's 15 years, 1999, 2014. 15 years, the wrestling ratings have gone down, period, end of story. When did these cycles come? Did these cycles come every 20 years? There are no cycles. And let me tell you why. Let me tell you now. I'm going to look right in the camera. I'm going to tell you why, okay? Do you know I never, in the time that I worked with Vince McMahon, I was connected to Vince McMahon's hip for about 3 years at his house, in his office, on the road with. I spent so much time with the guy, I couldn't stand looking at him anymore. He couldn't stand looking at me. We had many conversations during that time. Do you know I never one time heard the boss, Vince McMahon, say wrestling is cyclical? You know why? Vince doesn't make excuses. When business is down and business is bad, business is down and business is bad. Vince doesn't say wrestling is cyclical. And you know what Vince used to tell me? This is what Vince used to tell me. This came directly from Vince McMahon's mouth to you. Vince used to say to me, Vince, if it's good, they will watch it. That is a direct quote from Vince McMahon, who never once in any conversation I had with him did he ever tell me the wrestling business was cyclical. It's not. And everybody needs to stop using that as a crutch and bringing it up because it sounds good, because at the end of the day, it's an excuse. I want to go over a couple of things with you before we go to our next interview, because I'm live. I feel like, you got to get me live here before I throw it to Angelina Altishin, Little Egypt of G.L.O.W, who's gorgeous, drop dead gorgeous. Wait until you see her. She's gorgeous. But anyway, I got to tell you, I'm going to be answering, live tweets at the end of the show. You just got to put in hashtag Swerve Live. We're going to get to some live tweets. If you stay up with me through Little Egypt, and it'll be worth it, we're going to get to some of your tweets. Also, as I said at the top of the show, during the duration of the show, you could be a VIP member for life for $2.95 a month. There's no commitment, no 6-month commitment, no 2-month commitment. You can get out anytime you like. Okay, now I want to set up the interview with Angelina, Little Egypt of G.L.O.W, before I get to it. I wrote a story about G.L.O.W just this morning on pyroandballyhoo.com. This is great right now. I wrote the story this morning. I'm coming to you live the same day. But anyway, if you don't know G.L.O.W, if you're not familiar with G.L.O.W, there is a phenomenal documentary on Netflix that you have to watch about the gorgeous ladies of wrestling. This documentary will break down to you exactly how simple it is. Because what we tend to do in the wrestling business, and I don't know why, we tend to make it 1,000 times harder than it really is. It's simple. Throughout this interview with Angelina, she says, you've heard me say this a million times, she says it's not rocket science. I've been telling you that from day one. You need to look at the G.L.O.W documentary to really see what they did and the success they drew from it. It's unbelievable. Now, I'm going to throw it to Little Egypt. I'm going to throw it to Angelina Altishin. I'm going to let you tell her in her own words. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Swerve. And I concluded an exclusive interview with Angelina Altishin, Little Egypt of G.L.O.W. A great interview, insightful. I learned things about the gorgeous lady of wrestling, things I've wanted to know about for years. I was a huge fan going all the way back to 1986. I got some insights, some interesting stories, but not only that, I got to look at Angelina for almost an hour and a half, and that, I promise you, is worth the price of admission alone. She's still gorgeous. She looks as good as ever, but I saved some special topics for the Swerve that we're going to discuss right now. And Angelina, are you still hanging in there with me?
I am still here.
Okay, I want to talk about here exclusively on the Swerve, the documentary you can find on Netflix. It's called The Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. I got to be honest with you. I've seen it 3 times. You know why I haven't seen it more than 3 times?
No, what?
Because when we get to the convention part, I start blubbering like a child. I start crying all over myself. I literally, you know how like when you cry, especially men, you know, men whimper. This ain't whimper. I sob when I get to certain parts of the documentary. And we're going to talk about all that. But I want to ask you a question because I know part of the documentary of the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling is not a convention, a reunion that was put together by you. And, you know, these girls hadn't seen each other, you know, basically a lot of them since, you know, 1990. Now, was the idea of it that they were filming the documentary first, and when they started filming it, then you decided to put this reunion together as part of the documentary, or did it kind of all just happen organically?
So I would say it totally happened organically. I came in very early to do my interview. I drove from Vegas to Los Angeles because I heard Matilda the Hun was going to be there. And I love Queenie. I wrestled her. I mean, we just had the best time. I probably wrestled her more than any other wrestler in G.L.O.W. We just had so much fun. I heard from the documentary guys that she was going to be there and that Hollywood was going to be there. And so I got in my car. I drove 4.5 hours. I just wanted to see my girlfriends that I hadn't seen in over 20 years. I was so excited, so excited. So when I get there, I hear from the documentary guys that they found like maybe 6 of the girls. And I said, well, wait a minute. We're here doing a documentary. And so are you telling me that this story is going to be told by 6 people? Like, we had over 60 girls cast, so where's Chainsaw and Spike, or where's Americana, or has anyone reached out to look for Tina Ferrari, and does anyone know where these people are? And they were like, no, we've got a few leads. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, if you can give me the leads, I want to find more girls, because I think if we can find as many girls as possible, we're going to be able to tell the real story of G.L.O.W, the real story of the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. I don't want it to be told by 6 women. It just didn't seem fair. You know, it needed to be an experience that we all shared. And then when I was there giving my interview, like, I hear that Mount Fiji's in a nursing home. I just watched Queenie get out of a car into a wheelchair and just kind of zoom on up to say hi, and my heart's breaking in 1,000 different pieces, and I just can't believe that this is my sisterhood, and I can't believe I'm crying. I got to squeeze my butt cheeks. That's what they say. Squeeze your butt cheeks if you feel like crying. So long story short, I said, if you can give me the time, I will use the resources that I have, because I was a realtor, so I had access to tax rolls, and I'm smart. I considered myself fairly savvy in hunting down people, because that's kind of what we did in real estate. So they did, and I want to give a lot of credit to the documentary guys, because if they were just looking to put a great wrestling documentary in the can, they would have had it and they would have been done in 6 months and on to the next one. But they gave me 2.5 years. 2.5 years. At the time that you saw the reunion component of the documentary, I had found over 40 of the 60 girls that were cast. I ended up getting a coordinating producer credit. So that, for me, I helped on that documentary because it was about our legacy. It wasn't about any other reason. I wanted to protect the legacy and the work that we did. I thought that all the women needed to be recognized, and I worked hand in hand with the documentary guys. The way that the reunion component came about, Vince, and no one knew this was going to happen, when the documentary guys went to interview Mount Fiji and they talked to her, and she was breaking down because she wanted to just know that we were okay. She never stopped thinking about G.L.O.W, where so many of us went on and had families and jobs, and we kind of put G.L.O.W as a fond memory. She was still living it every day. And the girls that you saw in that documentary, a lot of them don't want to connect with fans. They're not interested in having a public profile. But when they knew that this was their chance to see Mount Fiji, that if we could get her out of that nursing home just for a few hours into this convention area, this room that we had reserved, that they would get a chance to say hi to her and see girls that they've never met before and connect with the ones that they used to wrestle with. No one paid those. Got on planes, they got in cars, got there. And that is going to be the only time you ever see that many G.L.O.W girls in a room for the right reason.
Angela, I have to ask you this question. In the documentary, again, you can see it on Netflix, G.L.O.W, The Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. I've seen it numerous times. I recommend it to everybody. Prior to the reunion, there's an interview with you where you break down. You start talking about, caring for some of the girls and wondering if they're okay where they are. And it was a very touching and emotional scene. I just wanted to ask you firsthand, what were you going through at that time? I mean, what was really bringing that emotion up that you hadn't seen them for so long? Because it was very, very touching to me. I would just love to know what was going through your mind at the time.
So I had just driven from Las Vegas to Los Angeles, right? And all that's going through my mind for 4.5 hours was, how's Hollywood looking? And I hope she's happy. And I wonder what's gone on with her life. And I get to see Matilda. Oh my God, I can't believe. And I got to tell myself, okay, she's going to be older. I just hope she's healthy. I hope she's had a good life. And then it was like the reality set in when I'm giving my interview right there on the spot. It was, it wasn't something that I intentionally wanted to break down and have all these emotions surface, but everything's kind of hitting me all at once that, hey, wait a minute, maybe not everyone was as blessed as I was. Is there a need here? Is there something I can do?
Well, listen, I can tell you, watching the Mount Fiji story in that documentary and what you did for her, putting that reunion together, and what that reunion meant to her. I mean, again, she's confined now to a hospital bed in a nursing home. She's got very bad knees. She gets around in a wheelchair. The early interviews with her, it is crystal clear. She has not stopped thinking about the very last day of G.L.O.W, somewhat 25 years later. and there was never closure. There was never a payoff for her. And she was a huge star, and everything she accomplished in her life, she attributed to G.L.O.W. And, again, for you to put the reunion together, if not for her and her alone, I got to tell you, man, there's a spot, and I don't want to get you upset, and I might get upset here myself, because every time I see it, I bawl. I bawl. But when Mount Fiji is wheeled into the room of the convention center, and all the girls are there and they sing the G.L.O.W. rap to Mount Fiji, I swear, I don't think you'll ever in your entire life see another human being's face just explode with excitement and happiness and joy. I've never witnessed anything like that in my life. And it doesn't matter how many times I watch the documentary, it's that point in it of what this reunion meant to this woman. And I got to tell you, Angelina, for you to put this all together and give her that gift, that's something she's thinking about now every single day, as she's still laying in that nursing home, but now she's able to go to bed peacefully with a big smile on her face. And, you were the one that were behind that, and I hope you truly understand what that meant to another human being.
Thank you so much. And when I get emotional, sometimes I think, wow, Angelina, hold it together. But if sometimes tears are an indication of just how honest, I don't even know how to use the words, but what I'm trying to say, Vince, is that when I tear up, because I seem to always tear up at that spot, it's because it's real. It's not something that we created. It's not designed to put over an audience or to sell a DVD. It's a story of sisterhood. It's a story of coming together. And I think that's why it's considered one of the best wrestling documentaries. And we took Best Documentary at Comic-Con 2012. We had an incredible film festival run where we went on and on to receive Audience Choice Awards. The list of where we were all over the world. We were even in Korea with this film. This was the little documentary that could. It had no budget whatsoever. But what it was a real story, and it was a story about the industry, how women who had nothing to do with wrestling were thrown into the most incredible business in the world, and how we found our way, and we grabbed ourselves, and we just went. And when G.L.O.W. ended, a lot of us kept moving forward, and we didn't realize, we didn't have a chance to look back and see who got stuck. So,
I got to tell you this too, Angelina. Another very, very, and Angelina, let me tell you this, because I want you to know this. When I first started my podcast, when I first went on Twitter and Facebook, and I didn't know anything about social media, okay? One of the first people that reached out to me to do his podcast was Stone Cold Steve Austin, of all people. And I know you did Austin's podcast, and I got to tell you, it was the first interview I had done in a long time with somebody that I actually worked with and cared about. And Austin broke me down to tears in the interview. I mean, Steve Austin, of all guys, broke me down to tears in the interview. So, I just want you to know that I know where it comes from, trust me. And that's why I think it's great. And I got to tell you, another scene that I really loved in the documentary, and I don't want to get you upset again, but I got to bring this up. But we touched upon this a lot in the VIP interview. We talked about the history and everything going on backstage. But man, when Mount Fiji, finally saw Matt Simber, boy, could you, the love she felt for this man. And listen, throughout the entire documentary, people have their different views of Matt Simber, but it was crystal clear. Mount Fuji loved this guy. When they're brought together on this documentary, man, it's just so powerful. And like I said, it's people appreciating other people. That's what it's all about. And again, just what a memorable scene in the documentary.
Never thought she was going to say what she said. Never thought that she was going to look at the cameras and say that she was worried about us. And never thought that when she saw Matt Simber, the first thing that she was going to say was, "Did you know I loved you?"
Right.
Do you understand? It was just like, Mount Fiji was the star of G.L.O.W, and she was the star of this documentary, not because of any other reason than she is one of the most dynamic, charismatic people you're ever going to meet, and she deserves everything she gets.
And that's crystal clear in the documentary. I mean, just you look in this woman's eyes and you see her heart. It's crystal clear. And again, as somebody that's been sliced in this between, but again, this is all the stuff that comes out in the documentary.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a question, Angelina. I want to get your opinion on this. I was a little, I don't know, confused by this. Why do you think that, in the documentary, Matt Simber refused to be interviewed?
Okay, so first of all, you're beating me down. I have just been picked up, chewed up, and spit out by Vince Russo. I mean, it was just, I'm like exhausted. I just have no more energy. But I'm going to tell you that I worked closely with Matt during the time that we were doing this, and I think he had no control over the way that the documentary was getting cut. And he did not want to give too much ammunition for them to tweak and turn, because he didn't know if these guys were going to be telling an authentic story. He didn't know if these guys were going to, how much they were going to throw him under the bus, because a lot of girls had a lot of dirt on Matt. And so he didn't know if it was going to be just some kind of a bitch fest where we all got up and told the world how much we hated Matt Simber. So what happened was, he showed up to the reunion, which was brilliant. He didn't have to come to that. He did not want to be mic'd. He just wanted to be there for Fiji. He knew it was important for Fiji. He loves G.L.O.W. He loves the work he did in G.L.O.W. Ultimately, he's proud of the work he did, maybe not proud of who he was during that time. But what happened was, after he saw the documentary, and I was the one that called him. I was like, Matt, the documentary's out. I want to send you a link so you can watch the documentary at home. And I want you to watch it with your wife. And I want you to call and tell me what you think, because we're proud of this documentary. We're proud of the work that we were proud of what we were able to package and put together. And after he saw it, he embraced this documentary like you wouldn't believe. Like he showed up at our LA Film Festival. You couldn't take the mic out of his hands. When Matt Simber will now talk about it. He thought that the documentary represented the story of G.L.O.W, and it represented the sisterhood. And I don't think he could have. I don't think in his heart of hearts that he would want to see it cut any other way than it was cut. So, with that being said, honestly, I think it was his own personal choice not to do an interview till he saw that it was safe for him to talk.
Yeah, and you know what? I think he was looked at and criticized in some points, but I think in a very fair way. Some of the girls had fond memories. Some thought he was a little rough on them, but everybody's perspective is going to be different, especially with the role that he was in. When you're the boss and you're calling the shots, people are going to have different perceptions of you, and I thought the portrayal was fair. And but I got to ask you this now, David McLane. This is the guy. Listen, Angela, am I fair to say there's no Glow without David McLean?
That you're fair to say that.
Okay. This is his baby. This, no matter what happened, it's his legacy. It's his brainchild. Listen, I know things didn't go down the way he wanted them to go down, and there has to be a lot of bitterness on his part. But I've got to ask the question, why wouldn't he be a part of this? I mean, this is his legacy. He created this. Whatever happened, I mean, it's 25 years later. Why do you think he didn't want to be a part of this documentary?
So, first of all, I was in touch with David during the whole time that we were doing this documentary and wanted his, oh man, we wanted his interview so bad because we felt like we didn't have a Glow documentary without David McLean's input. Unfortunately, David was trying to negotiate more on the back end, taking more of a management level in the distribution, and the documentary guys were not interested in collaborating. And so they were hoping to the very end that somehow he would still give an interview, but it didn't work out. David has seen the documentary. He thinks it's a great documentary. Maybe now he wishes he could have given an interview. I don't know. I never asked him. But I am in touch with David, and he loves these girls. He loves the journey he took. It was just as important to him as it was to everybody else. But that was just the cards he wanted to play.
I got to ask you this, Angelina, especially having conversations with him of late. Yeah. I would hate to think that like David McLean with Glow is in the same place that Mount Fiji was prior to the reunion. Do you think he's in that place? I would just really hate that he brought this phenomena to the world. 6 million people watched it every single week, for 4 years. I know he wasn't a part of it for the entire 4 years. It would have never existed without him. I just hope this guy isn't, sitting in a dark room, someplace, not revering, what he did and the success of this that wouldn't have, come to fruition if it wasn't for him.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And he's not. He's, like I said, I'm in touch with David. And we have had small meetings where he's been able to connect with some of the other girls. So through a very intimate backdoor way, David's very connected, and he's really proud of the work he did, and he really appreciates every time that I keep connecting him with what's going on and where we're at. He just really appreciates it. So he definitely feels like he's part of the journey, even though you may not see it. And for those of you who want to know more about David's role in Glow and how he was able to bring this company together, we put together a commentary reel on the bonus feature of our DVD. And that bonus feature has an entire commentary reel where we actually talk about David. We break it down with Matilda, Hollywood. Billy Corgan is leading the documentary. And with all that being said, it answers all the questions. And so you've been watching Glow on Netflix, which I think we have like 5 more months left on that contract. If you take the time to get Glow, the DVD, The Story of the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, available on Amazon, you can buy this. You'll have the bonus feature. Sorry, it was upside down. There, Glow. You'll be able to have the bonus reel, which has a lot of interviews that we did not put on the DVD, and it also has the commentary reel, and we really break down David's involvement in Glow and the promotion. So yeah, we've got it all covered. It's a complete package, and I think you've just been watching the Netflix version, but I'm going to send this to you, Vince. I want you to send me your address. I'm going to put one of these in the mail to you today.
I'm so glad you told me about that, because I wouldn't have known, because I definitely want to hear that commentary and, just hear again, because again, I feel for David McLean. I mean, I really, really do. And he really created something special here. And I think he should revel in it. I mean, that's just me. I'm sure he has his reasons why he's in the background. But again, it did bring so much joy to so many people's lives. Were there any stories from the documentary or the reunion that you can tell that maybe we didn't see on the final cut?
That I wish would have made it to the documentary?
Or that just didn't? I mean, just any stories or insights that just didn't make it to the documentary?
Yeah, there was a lot that didn't make it to the documentary. There were several. There was like another arc, we were going to wrap in, like Babe the Farmer's Daughter, who picked up the G.L.O.W trademark along the way, but the story was too. It wasn't. It just wasn't what we thought was the story of G.L.O.W. We didn't want it to be the story of Ursula, so we wanted to tell more of the story of the women and what we went through. So you'll see some more footage on the bonus reel that I'm going to send you. So you'll see kind of where there might have been another arc, but we nipped it right in the bud. So that would be the only other thing that I think. There's other interviews in there that I thought was very compelling, but the lighting was bad or the sound was off. So it's still worth getting the bonus reel to kind of catch up on, like, some of the girls that were in the reunion. You're like, wow, there's the California doll. Why doesn't someone talk to her? Well, we did. It's just that for whatever reason we were having something technical happen with that interview, which didn't make it to the final cut.
Got you. Well, again, Angelina, I love G.L.O.W. I love the documentary. I loved having you on the show and all your insight. And listen, if anything develops G.L.O.W., anything happens, please come on here and report it to me first. So it's recognized by all the millions of people, that saw it. Here's the problem with wrestling today, okay? It's all the same. Nothing's different. Nothing's unique. It's all been done before. G.L.O.W. was a show that was unique to the industry, never, ever duplicated. It had a personality of its own, and it still stands the test of time some 25 years later. So, again, I want to thank you for all those memories. I want to thank you for all the entertainment, and most importantly, I want to thank you for being my guest on the Swerve today.
I had so much fun. Thank you for having me. Next time, I'll make sure I feel so bad about that. Honestly, I'm not, I'm not an actress. I'm just someone who was thrown into a crazy situation, saw it for what it was, and then saw that we all still have a role 20 years later, that we can still come around full circle and use the work that we did to try and lay the foundation that, if you want to do something, if there's a will, there's a way, and you just make it happen. That's I hope is ultimately the final message that people get. And again, G.L.O.W, the documentary, is streaming on Netflix for the next few months. I don't know if we're going to renew a contract with them or not. After that, it's available on Amazon and iTunes. And I hope that you find me on Twitter at @LittleEgypt, where we can stay connected and I can connect you to the rest of the ladies that are out there.
Okay. Thank you very much, Angelina.
Thank you.
The Swerve is brought to you by MyFaceOnAFigure.com, where you can literally become your own action figure. Look, if you're a collector of wrestling figures, this is a no-brainer. Bring yourself to life in the wrestling world and go up against some of the biggest names in the business. And of course, Christmas is coming up. Surprise your friend or loved ones with their very own figure from MyFaceOnAFigure.com. That's MyFaceOnAFigure.com. Tell them Vince Russo sent you. All right, everybody, we are back. What did I tell you about Angelina? What a beautiful and intelligent woman. And I have to tell you, G.L.O.W had a huge influence on me when I was writing for the WWE. And if you go watch that documentary, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. You'll see a lot of G.L.O.W in the style of Vince Russo. And I also want to add that in the story I put up today on pyroandballyhoo.com, you can actually see Little Egypt wrestle a match. I put one of her G.L.O.W matches in the body of the story so you can, see her back then during her heyday in G.L.O.W. But what a beautiful, smart, intelligent woman. And I was so happy to have her on the show. I'm going to bring more more ladies from G.L.O.W on the show. That's why I want you to watch the documentary and become familiar with it. I'm telling you, you'll be entertained by this. It's 100 times better than what you're seeing on Monday nights now. I could tell you that right now. Listen, I want to tell you one more thing because I want to explain this to you. During the rest of the duration, as you know, we're going to give you the VIP membership for $295 for life. 1 month, 2 months, a year, however long you want it, $295 a month, that's what it's going to cost. But I want you to understand, I had a completely different, separate VIP interview with Angelina. And it was during that interview that we talked about the entire history of G.L.O.W. We talked about, the groupies. We talked about the politics. We talked about Ivory, who later, when Tina Ferrari became Ivory later on in the WWE, her name is Lisa Moretti. We talked a lot about Lisa, but there's a whole other hour-long interview with Angelina that you get as a VIP member. So you get these extended interviews each and every week that you don't see on the Swerve. That's just one of the other bonuses. Another thing I do with the VIP is before you watch Raw on Monday night, I book my own version of Raw that I put up online before Raw comes on so you could see what they do and you could see what Vince Russo does. Another thing we're about to get into, and this is going to be a huge doing. We're going to start fantasy wrestling. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to book WCW in the year 2000. What would have happened if I would have never left? So I'm going to have the same talent roster, and I'm going to be booking Monday Nitro on a weekly basis. That's going to be available on the VIP site. Also, because of G.L.O.W, I'm just starting to introduce the world, the VIP. I call you guys the brand. I'm just about to introduce you to the world of Bitch Slap. It was a concept that Jeremy Borash and myself had, which was a Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling in 2002. Outlandish characters. I'm starting to release that piece by piece on the VIP section as well. But listen, now I've made you wait this long. It's 1:30 in New York. I know you're still up with me, and I know this is the part of the show where I said I was going to take Twitter questions from you. You just have to hashtag Swerve Live. That's also the code to get the $295 membership. Hashtag Swerve Live. We're going to go to the Twitter questions now. I'm going to bring in my producer, Chris Cash, so he can ask me the questions and I can answer them. And Chris, are you there?
Yes, sir. Great show tonight.
Thank you. I had a lot of fun, bro. It's 1:30 in New York. I'm as fresh as a daisy.
Hey, I tell you what,
even though it looks like you haven't shaved in days, but that's another story for another time.
Why do you have to bring my facial hair up every single time we talk?
I don't know, bro. Hey, listen, hey Chris, I didn't even share this with you, right? I got a little surprise for those people that are still up at 1:30 on the East Coast. Are you ready for this, Chris? Chris, as the producer of the show, I didn't even tell you this. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm going to answer these Twitter questions with my official San Francisco Giant / Bray Wyatt hat on.
Oh, God.
Let's go.
All right. Let's, guys, if you want to get your questions in real quick, hashtag Swerve Live. Sarah Jane Baxter asks, if WWE had competition, do you think it would improve?
I think it would have to improve. I don't think they'd have a choice. Definitely they'd have to improve. I think right now they're being a little complacent. I think they're being, satisfied with what they have. If there were competition right now and that competition started getting a hold of the wrestling business, I believe that heads would roll at the WWE as far as, creative was concerned a lot quicker than they are now.
All right, we've got Wrestling Fan on Twitter. Says, after listening to last week's Swerve, I understand why certain hornyackers would rather knock you instead of having a civil debate. TJ Light also asks, how would you feel if Cena ended up winning the title at WrestleMania again in the near future? And just so I'm correct, if he wins the title, does that tie Ric Flair? Would that tie Ric Flair, I think?
I think so, Chris. I'm not 100% sure.
I think that would
on
make
that.
16.
Yeah, but Chris, I say this all the time, and this is where I'm in the minority. I'm a huge John Cena fan. John Cena is tremendous. I have no problem with John Cena winning a title again. Listen, when you look at that WWE roster and you look at that show on Monday nights, there's very few people that can hold a candle to the guy. And even for as long as he's doing it now, I think he's going on 12 years, however long he's doing it, the guy's still the best on the show. And that's why they continue to go with him. So I have no problem with John Cena winning the title again.
Corey Dunn wants to know, what is the one storyline that you are most proud to have written in your career?
Yeah, and I've mentioned this numerous times. Definitely the night that Rock joined the corporation. It was just so well written between Ed and myself. And I'm not saying that to put myself over. We put so much time and effort into this. We played this story out over such a long period of time. Nobody saw it coming. Far and away the best thing we ever wrote together.
Manuel Felix, wants to know, do you think there will ever be another program like G.L.O.W, or will it not do well in this time frame?
I think it would do tremendous in this time frame. And like I said, that's why myself and Jeremy, we wrote this Bitch Slap show back in 2002. The intent was to bring it to DirecTV and have it be on pay-per-view on a weekly basis, because there was going to be a lot of risque stuff on the show. We didn't have the financial backing. I'm not one that likes to lose other people's money, so that's where I fall short. We didn't have the backing. There's no question in my mind an updated version of G.L.O.W would work in 2014, and I think it would draw a huge audience, no doubt in my mind.
We'll take a few more questions. Hashtag Swerve Live. Vincent Steiner and a couple of people I believe I've seen asking about WWE NXT. He says, have you been able to watch WWE NXT? And if so, what are your thoughts? P.S. I do recommend it.
I got to be honest with you. And again, I've only seen it one time. So obviously I've got to give it more time than that. But the one time that I saw it, I just saw a high-end, high-budget, independent show. That's what I saw. So I wasn't a huge fan of NXT the first time I saw it. I know a lot of people like it. I know I have to watch it again. And, now I'm watching a lot of this Lucha Underground. It's on tomorrow night. So I've got to get NXT into the rotation somehow. But, the first time I saw it, it's not like it grabbed me that, I got to watch this show again. I can't miss it. But I am going to give it another opportunity.
TJ Light, how would you feel if, I've already asked that question. Somebody else asked them about WCW. If Turner, there we go, Dash Gamer, if Turner owned WCW and it was around today, would John Cena have ever considered jumping for the right money?
It's all about money. Period. At the end of the day, hands down, it's no different than, basketball, football, hockey, baseball. They're athletes, and they can only perform for a certain period of time. They have a window. So in that window, they're going to try to make as much money as they possibly could. So I'm sure if he got a better offer from WCW, looking out for his future, why wouldn't John Cena have jumped ship?
Two more questions. Dylan asks, do you like, and I'm saving a good one for last, Vince, because I know you're going to have something to say about this, and it's something that a lot of fans, I hear them saying, I don't know where it comes from, I'm curious, and I know fans will be curious to what you have to say about it. However, before that question, Dylan asked, do you like how Triple H is running the business?
That's not a fair question because I don't know how much of it he's involved in. I don't think any of us know how much of it he's involved in unless we were there and we saw the day to day and really knew what Hunter's had his hands in and what his fingerprints are on. You can't make that assessment. You can't make that judgment. I know he has a lot to do with NXT and developmental, and that seems to be doing fine. But as far as the product we're seeing on air, it's hard to make that call not knowing really, how much he's involved and how much, Vince is still, has a stranglehold on the product. We don't know that. So it's hard for me to answer that.
And final question. I'm not going to read the Twitter name, but it is a good question. Is Kevin Dunn a problem for the WWE? And Vince, I really want to hear your thoughts on this. I know you and I have talked about it a couple of times in the past. What is it about Kevin Dunn that some people apparently think they know? I don't know what the reports are. I don't know what people have written in books. I'm not sure where the heat with Kevin Dunn comes from. Not the wrestlers. I don't hear it a lot from wrestlers. I hear it from fans. For some reason, Kevin Dunn is a major issue with the WWE, and I'm curious if you know where it comes from, and do you think it's fair?
Well, let me first say this. I'm not certain where it comes from. I can tell you this. This I know for a fact. A man by the name of James E. Cornette is not a huge Kevin Dunn fan. So, it wouldn't surprise me if James Cornette said some things publicly about Kevin Dunn. So maybe that's where it got out there. I don't know. I don't know who else would have insight into Kevin Dunn to say things about him, publicly. I'm going to say some things about Kevin Dunn publicly right now. Kevin Dunn is a genius. Kevin Dunn is on par with Vince McMahon. Kevin Dunn runs the entire television division at Titan Sports, and he was running it long before I even got there in 1994. The guy is a freaking genius. No way in the world would Vince McMahon and the WWE be as successful as they've been without Kevin Dunn. So whoever's starting these rumors, whoever's taking pop shots at Kevin Dunn, they're out of line. They're ridiculous. The guy is a professional. He's a tremendous part of the success of the WWE, and without him and without that valuable piece, they would not be where they are today. Hands down, period.
Interesting. Several people in the chat room on YouTube. By the way, guys, if you have not subscribed to the official Pyro and Ballyhoo YouTube, there's a good live chat going on over there, and make sure you subscribe as well. But that's what I've got for you, Vince.
Well, that's it. Listen, Chris, I appreciate it. I think this first night was a success. I don't think there were many hiccups. I think it went rather smoothly. I mean, we're looking at 137 now in New York. I hope those people are still up. I'm still up. But, Chris, before we go, I got to plug next week. Next week, history is going to be made. And I'll tell you why, Chris. Because next week, on the Swerve, we have Tony Schiavone. And let me, first of all, no doubt one of the greatest wrestling announcers of all time. No doubt about it. No doubt one of the most honest stand-up guys I ever met in the wrestling business, hands down. No doubt about any of that. But let me tell you what the important thing is. The important thing is when all that David Arquette stuff went down, that everybody, that nobody seems want to be held accountable for except yours truly. Nobody has anything to say about that. They kind of hide in the shadows. Tony Schiavone played a pivotal part in that, and Tony Schiavone was there for the entire situation. When it unfolded, how it unfolded, Tony will be able to tell that story. So it won't be coming from me. It'll be coming from somebody else that was a part of the discussions that day, concerning David Arquette winning the WCW World Title. It's going to be discussed for the first time in a forum such as this, because I don't think many people know Tony's involvement, yet you had to be working with Tony to know. So, next week, right here on The Swerve, a very special interview with Tony Schiavone. And listen, I just want to say, I want to thank everybody, especially the VIP members and the brand, for making all this possible, making Pyro and Ballyhoo a success. I want to thank Chris publicly for all the hours that he puts in, takes care of me, puts up with me, and I'm a wackadoo, man. From Monday through Sunday, I drive the guy nuts and he doesn't go anywhere. And I think we came a long way in 6 months. This was our first live show. We'll be here every Tuesday, same bat time, same bat channel. Chris, take him home with the Breakfast Club.
It's right about time again to swerve again, confuse the general fans again. Add another swerve and then put it on a poll again. Put it on a poll again. Put it on the poll again. And our square to quad is gonna get emotional as I wait to overbook the damn cards. I guess I'm losing confidence in my competence.